Hey, what's up, guys? It's Global 5. We're going to do a deck profile. It's been a little while since we've done one, so, it's just good to get back into it. Hopefully, we're going to start bringing a lot more content on a frequent basis, like I know I've said in some other videos. So today, I'm showing off my Goblin Slayer build that I qualified for the North America National Tournament with. It does a couple of different things than some other decks do, so that's why I kind of wanted to show it off comparatively to what others are playing, and just kind of give my rationale behind some of the ratios, because the ratios are another thing that you can see vary a lot between Goblin Slayer builds. It is a deck that is coming out in English as well at the end of January, so this is a relevant deck for both formats, which I think is really good as well to showcase. So starting off, we'll go by level, I think is the easiest way to do this, and I'll flip around if cards combo with each other. But this card, High Elf Archer, Challenging the Unknown. It's a free runner that also has the effect of choose two characters in your waiting room, return them to your library, shuffle your library. You do this on attack, and it'll gain 1 soul for the turn if you do this. This card's like a really good tech card, I found. Adding the 2 characters back into deck sometimes allows me to get a climax back into my refresh. It also allows me to push damage sometimes if I'm unable to get climaxes. I'll shuffle 2 characters back in with soul triggers, and then hopefully I'll trigger those just to push a little bit more, especially to punish opponents that aren't compressed or are out a lot of climaxes. So this card's been really good just in those instances. You also play it just to grab yellow for another tech card, which we'll talk about when we reach the level 3s. But for those 2 reasons, this is why I'm playing. I'm playing as 4 of because it's a free runner, trying to get that plus early game just to keep it on board. But yeah, I think this card's really good. I know that people are playing the Chaser. It's a 3,500 via 5 card in hand, run in front of characters. But I do believe that this with utility is really good. Playing some form of split between this and the Chaser runner also seems like a pretty good idea. I just don't do it, but it's an entirely valid play as well. This card, Priestess, Gentle Cleric, it's your Brainstorm. Pay 1, rest itself. For each climax you hit, you get to search your deck. Another good reason to put cards back in your deck, unfortunately it's on attack and not play, is I'm looking at searching my deck mostly with this build. I don't really get to grab off of my graveyard too much, which is something I may eventually look at fixing. It's just the cards that were doing it didn't seem very impactful when I had them in the deck. The other effect that this has is that whenever your trigger check reveals an event, you choose one of your characters and give it 2,000 for the turn. The Brainstorm doesn't end up being on the field very often, I find. It's basically there if you're trying to mill, or if you're just looking for other avenues to try to grab cards out of your deck. I have it as a 3 of. I've seen people play it as a 2 of, but sometimes I just want to make sure I can get it. So that's why I have it as a 3 instead of a 2 of. So that's my rationale for that. Obviously, pay 1, rest self, Brainstorm is really good. Playing this as like a 2 of and then like a Cowgirl Brainstorm to actually have access to the graveyard also is a fine play and is probably what I might end up doing at some point. I just haven't gotten to that point yet where I wanted to make that switch, just because the deck has played so well as it is. This card is Sword Maiden. Welcome to Watertown. It's a Ricky, so on play, you can pay cost, which is pay 1, put the top card of your library in your clock. If you do, you can search your library for a character with Goblin Slayer in name, and then shuffle your deck. You're basically using this to try to get your level 1 combo. If you don't get your level 1 combo in this deck, it becomes much harder to do what you want to do. So using this card, your brainstorm, the next card we're going to talk about, you're just trying to make sure you can get as many pieces of your level 1 as possible. So this card is from the trial deck, Priestess, Mother Earth's Messenger. It is a drop search, pay 1, discard a card, search for an order character. Again, you're basically trying to look for your level 1 combo with it. But the other effect is also relevant in the deck, where you get to scry the top card of your deck, leave it there, put it on the bottom. It's just really helpful when you're trying to look at Priestess top checks. If you don't get the alarm because you've refreshed, or if you just want to, or if you see a climax off this peak, you can put it, and then the alarm lets you look at 2 more, and hopefully both of those are characters for a guaranteed top check for the climax combo. I'm playing this at 2 because it's something I definitely want to see. You could play 4 of the Ricky instead and play 1 of this, but sometimes I want to drop search for other things. Plus, having these scries, why I have this at 2 and the Ricky at 3. So that's a little preferential point there, I guess, depending on how you want to do it. This card is your early play condition for the Priestess 3/2 that neg souls, Goblin Slayer True Bond. It's an on reverse Rize. So when this card becomes reversed in battle, you can look at up to the top 3 cards of your library, choose up to 1 card this way with order as a trait, put it in the hand, put the rest in the waiting room, then you have to discard a card. It's possible to whiff on this because you are playing events, but you're going to play this card anyway because it's your early play condition for your 3/2 neg soul walls. So you're going to play it. You play it as a 4/0 because you want to make sure you can get it the clock condition. And then the little extra mill off the Rize effect is also really helpful as well. This card, this PR is really good. It's very expensive, but it does help and also hand filters pretty well. So Cowgirl, an ordinary piece. It's a top checker for order trait, which is everything in the deck. You add to hand and then discard. It also has the effect that you can discard an order character to draw a card. So if you're trying to dig for either your gate or your door, this card can get you 1 card closer. Or if you're just trying to, help mill through the deck or get towards confirming a brainstorm, this is really good and helps you with that. So, all these things are just trying to get you your level 1 combo. So you can see how heavily favored the utility out 0 is towards that goal. Moving into the level 1s, the first one is Priestess, the Virtuous Maiden. I'm playing this at 3 copies. I had it at 2 for a very long time, but I found that I like to have double back row of this, and 3 has helped to get that more often than not. The first effect is that during your opponent's turn, all your order characters gain 1k power. And then the second effect is when you place a climax, you get to choose 2 of your characters and they gain 1k for the turn. So what you're doing is you're basically buffing up your level 1 combo, which is a 6k pretty much all the time, up to 7 or 8k, and then on your opponent's turn make it 7k. 7k is that sweet spot where I think that people want to be to try to reverse. So if you can, pump it there, it may be a little hard for certain decks to get over it. Speaking about the level 1 climax combo, we're looking at that right now. It's Goblin Slayer, Detailed Strategy. If you have 2 or more order characters, it gains 2k power. The climax combo is on the door, down here, Life and Death Struggle. It's a 1k one, of course. What it does is it allows you to either search or salvage this torch event. There is another torch event as well. I don't play it. For whatever reason, I chose to go 4 of this. A lot of people go with 3 of this and then a 1 split to the other torch, but I just want to make sure I can manipulate my deck. For me, being able to mill and grab things has been really important in this. Um, like I've had a bunch of cancels, and then I just need to mill my whole deck, and my opponent just throws their hands up because they're like, "Cool, looks like I'm not going to be able to deal any damage to you the next turn as well." And this card is what allows me to do that. Or, let's say I've triggered my last climax with 4 cards left in deck. This is going to let me mill those 4 cards, most likely, unless my opponent sides or does some other shenanigans that makes me miss a counter step. But then I've just saved myself 4 damage, which is super clutch. So in order to play, you have to have an order character on field. So seems value, and then just look up the top 4, add an order. So Chahaya's camera, I guess, is like the archetype, but it also has the counter icon, so you can play it during the counter step. I'm also playing 2 of these 2K counters. Priestess, looking forward. If you have an order character, you can choose a character in battle and give it 1K on top of the 1K. So these 7Ks, because of this, become 9Ks, and then you're just hopefully denying the reverses that your opponent was looking for. Keeps your board, pluses your board, so you don't need to clock anymore, which is really nice because you can just use these to try to find things. This, your brainstorm, all your other utility that we have at 0. And it's just really consistent. I'm playing 2 of this just because I want to make sure I at least see 1. If I can get both in my hand, I'm usually pretty solid to just keep the wall going. Definitely for 2, maybe 3 turns, depending on how resource starved my opponent becomes. Trying to get their items and get back at me. Moving into level 2, I'm only playing 1 copy of these. The first one is apparently not in my translations. Priestess, what's a consultation? It's a bottom deck bomb for early plays. I like having a character and backup split between early play killers. Just gives an ability to field something, especially bottom decking. I think is probably the second best way to remove something from the board. The first way, of course, is clock bombing, because having access to clock is very, very limited. So, but bottom decking is also really good. So if you don't have a clock bomb, bottom deck bomb's really good, in my opinion. This is a anti-change counter, gives 2,500, but you can also discard 2 cards from your hand when you play it in order to put an opponent's character higher than their level into the waiting room. So, just another way to remove your opponent's characters, but you also want the 2,500 power to buff your early play, because she is kind of small. Even if you pass top check, this 2,500 power can become very relevant because she's about 11.5, depending on how your back row looks. So another reason to play 2 of these 2K counters is, sometimes the 2K is super relevant just to, keep these on board. So this is your early play. In order to play it early, you have to have the alarm and clock. And what she is comes into play, draws 2 cards, and then you discard. So she digs for her climax, she digs for other copies of herself, she digs for the other utility tools, or just digs to get through the deck. So that's pretty cool. And then when she attacks with the gate in your climax zone, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an order character or an event until the end of your opponent's next turn. It gains 1,500 power in the following ability: that at the beginning of your opponent's attack phase, all of your opponent's characters get -1 soul for the turn. And then you put the reveal card back where it was. So this is probably the most oppressive neg soul wall in the game currently. If you can get 2 or 3 of these off, especially multiple turns, because being able to recur the combo is also really easy to do between herself digging 2 cards. You have this card which can dig 5. You have the promo 0/0 that can dig 2-ish cards. So recurring this is very easy. Not to mention if you trigger a gate, you just grab a gate from grave, and there you go, you did it. I don't play this if I don't have at least 2. Getting 1 priestess off has been very not beneficial. It doesn't really do much just to get 1 off, so I'll hold and maintain the stock and just kind of build that up. Usually at that point, I'll early play this one, which we'll get into in a second. But other than that, if you don't have at least 2, I'm just holding it and just waiting until either another turn I've sandbagged at 2, or if I unfortunately get to 3, then I just have to play them at 3 in order to try to maintain game state where I can stay alive and then push my opponent to dead. This card is an early play. If you have 2 or less climaxes in your graveyard, it comes out early. Cowgirl Bursting with Vitality, the name. When it comes into play, you can look up the X cards, where X is the number of order characters you have. So if you have a full field, this is digging 5 cards. A good way to, grab your second priestess, grab your gate, grab some other utility, mill through 5 cards of your deck for no reason. It's all really good utility to try to get what you want. The other effect it has, because your priestess is so small, is that when it attacks, you choose one of your other order characters, and it gains X power, where X is 500 times the amount of order characters on the board. So if you're worried about your opponent backing up over your priestess, this can pump in another 2.5k, which sometimes just gets it out of range. So that's also been pretty clutch in certain instances. So also, if you're not going to early play this because you can only get 1 off or don't get the combo for whatever reason, it's just a 2-soul beater that can come out early. So that's also pretty good. I was playing 2 of these. I dropped one of them in order to tech in this elf, which I'll get into in a second. But most of the time, one of these ended up in my level zone, and then the other one was there in order to actually play it. It's been pretty fine playing like it has, but I may try to put another one of these back in at some point. I just don't know how, because space is so tight with everything that you're trying to do within this deck. But the card that I teched in, High Elf Archer, Natural Born Adventurer. This card's really good, and it's become a necessary tech because of certain decks such as Bunny Girl Senpai that are running around. When this card comes into play from your hand, you may pay the cost, which is 2 stock. If you do, you choose one of your opponent's level 3 or lower characters, and you return it to their hand. Bunny Girl Senpai, this gets rid of their bodyguard. If you're playing the mirror match, you can bounce one of the priestesses. Now you're not going to take any neg soul. It can also bounce back rows that are giving power or anything else like that, so that's really good. The other effect that it has is known as a Musashi effect. Up to once per turn, the turn that it comes into play from your hand, damage dealt by this is cancelled. You can mill the top card of your deck. If you do, you deal X damage to your opponent, where X is the level of that card plus 1. And damage cancel, of course, can be canceled. But just trying to confirm damage, or, if you're just playing a really long stall game and your opponent is healing down and also refreshing really well, this can, potentially deal some damage through their cancel walls that, may just end up winning you the game. But mostly we're playing for the bounce, but it does have that other added end utility as well. So definitely a worth card to put in. Again, it's why I'm playing these 4 runners. I never don't have yellow when I want it. So, I mean, that's never been a worry. So, the only other thing that you could probably put in for yellow without warping this deck, there's a stock bomb 2-1. I was playing a build that was running that, 2 Musashis and the Forerunner, but it became too warped to do what it really wanted to do, and therefore the yellow dropped down significantly in this, my like third iteration of the deck. The second to last level 3 that we have is Sword Maiden Passionate Love. I really wish this was an early play. A really strong reason to play the standby deck is so that you can get this out early. It's a global 1500 to order characters. It heals when it comes into play from hand, and it also allows you to rest it to look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and then you can put them on top in any order. This is really good with Priestess because if you see a climax and a character, you can rearrange them and then know your attack order appropriately. It's also really good because if you don't want to be clocking, because you've been neg-soling in order to maintain a damage lead, this will allow you to look at the cards and know what you're going to be triggering off of this, so you can keep recurring the neg-sol wall. The last card, it took me a really long time to put this in. I don't know why. Bad player, I guess. But I finally put it in here with the third iteration of the deck, and it's helped me close out a couple games, so it was definitely a worthwhile investment to put in. Their name is Goblin Slayer, is the card. And during battles involving this, your opponent cannot play backup from hand. So your opponent can't do anything to get over this, which is really clutch because the next card, the next effect is that during your turn, when this card's battle opponent becomes reversed, you may pay the cost of 3 stock to burn your opponent for 2. So we don't really have a finisher in this deck because we're playing the neg-sol, so you're just kind of stalling the game out as long as possible. So this card just gives you a little avenue in order to try to close the game out. If your opponent's 3-5, deal that last 2 damage and take the game. I actually did that against somebody in the WGP I qualified for. The final 2 damage was what won me the game. Otherwise, I probably would have lost. So this is my my Goblin Slayer build. It's probably going to be the same build for when I get the English deck. But I also have built a standby deck, which I will be testing over the next couple of weeks as well, which looks pretty fun. But as my tournament qualifier, this is the deck that I've been grinding, and I stand behind as a really good build to try and do. So yeah, I want to thank everyone for sticking with me throughout this video. Like I said, we're hopefully going to get more content streaming every 1 to 2 weeks. If you guys have any suggestions for content, you can hit us up here. You can email. You can hit us up on Discord. We have a channel of suggestions. And yeah, other than that, hopefully everyone's doing well in their WGP qualifiers. If you're going to be at Nats, hit me a line. I would love to play some games with everybody in person. And other than that, we're going to sign off. Thank you all again for hanging out with us.